to another video. Today I'm going to be recording for you guys a video that has been highly requested on my channel, and that is my eating disorder recovery story. Also wanted to set a little disclaimer that I am going to be showing pictures of throughout my recovery journey, and I might mention a number or here and there and just talk about some of my own triggers. So if that is something that you don't want to hear, or if you're in a place in your recovery where that is something that could possibly trigger something, please, I encourage you not to watch this video until you feel like you might be more stable and more equipped to handle what I might be talking about. Just wanted to quickly put that out there so I don't unintentionally end up triggering someone else that might be watching. I already have an idea. I think this video is going to be pretty long. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna get right into it. I'm gonna start from the very beginning. I think for me, it all started in 4th grade. Maybe not, my eating disorder didn't start in 4th grade. Yeah, definitely didn't start in 4th grade, but my awareness of my body compared to other people started. So I remember I had a best friend and I did like almost everything with her, and I remember there was times when I would think like, oh, she's so much skinnier than me, she's a lot taller than me. Just those ideas starting in 4th grade started to kind of creep up, the idea that I was different and that I wasn't the same. Then going into 5th grade, I had gotten my period for the first time, and no one else in my class had their period yet. So that was a bit interesting, and I remember thinking that I was bigger than all the other girls, which in 5th grade, from 5th grade to 8th grade, I went to a charter school. So it was a lot smaller than the typical regular elementary and middle school. So there was like, what I mean by that, by saying that, is there was a smaller pool of girls that I was comparing myself to, which I don't think was good for me at that time, because it made me feel, it brought me to form this very closed-minded mindset where it was like, oh, these girls are all super skinny and I'm super big, so, and since there's no one else like my size, then I'm the only one of my kind. When if I think, had I been in a bigger school, I might have found people that were more like me, had my kind of body type, and so on. I will say that growing up, I was not restricted. My family was very open with the foods that we were able to eat and that we were eating in general. We would eat everything and anything. So like, we'd eat ice cream, donuts. I remember there was times when there would be like teacher work days where I'd go to school with my mom while she finished up some work, and we'd go and get a couple dozens of donuts from Dunkin' Donuts, and me and my siblings would literally just sit there and eat all of them. So there's definitely no restriction whatsoever growing up in regards to food. But even though there was no like severe forms of restriction imposed by my family growing up, being around and comparing myself to other people in my grade and in my school was really hard on me, and I took that out through food. So I wasn't aware that I had a disordered relationship with food at the time. There would be times, I remember, where I would take like 10 granola bars and sneak them into my room and just eat all of them and just feel disgusting afterwards, and I would still feel hungry. And there was also times where like I would sneak out into my kitchen at night and take like a gallon of ice cream and take it back to my room and eat it all. Using food in that way wasn't really beneficial for me, and it reflected itself mentally and physically. Mentally, I did not feel any better by eating the food. If anything, it was only temporary, because it allowed me to numb the pain and the feelings that I was feeling at the time. And as a result of the binging, I was gaining a lot of weight. It got to the point when I was in 8th grade, my doctor told me that I was overweight. At the time, I was around like 5'1", 5'2", and I was almost 180 pounds. And I'm not saying that to trigger anyone. I'm just putting that out there because for my frame, that is not a really sustainable weight to be at. And if anything, it just showed me, it just goes to show like the extent that binging and that using food to quench your feelings can have in regards to your physical and mental health. And so after being categorized as overweight, which yes, I was overweight physically, but I always replay in my mind there's different ways my doctor could have approached me about that. I think at that time when you're growing up and you're trying to find how you fit in your world and in society, the last thing you want to be told is that you don't fit into a mold, basically, the mold that you're trying to fit into. Plus, at that age, your mindset and your idea of yourself is so fragile that anything can mold it and change it. Also, it being that I was in 8th grade, I had made a pact with myself forever that I was like not gonna be the fat kid or the overweight person in high school. That May, I ended up starting to begin my weight loss journey, and I started working out more frequently because before I was not really working out at all. The only workout I really did was every once in a while my parents would have us go on a run as a family, and that's about it. I did not like working out at all. I started eating less, obviously, but at the beginning it was just more like not intentionally eating less, but just trying to eat more healthy foods. So like instead of eating more like carb heavy foods, I would eat like salads and stuff like that. So I wasn't really restricting. But then when I started like getting like praise, like, oh, you lost weight, so like good job, and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I need to like keep this going. I need to keep losing weight. I wasn't at a deemed healthy weight yet. I had probably only lost like 10 pounds or so, but I started having my mom help me with she would help me with finding diets, setting up different workout routines and stuff like that. And it wasn't long before my balanced meals that I was previously having turned into like solely only having a protein shake or a granola bar for a meal. And on top of that, I went from working out like a couple of times a week to like almost working out every day, whether it be working out outside or doing like 5+ hours of just dance in order to burn calories and stuff like that. At the time, I was using WeFit, which was, I don't even know if people still do WeFit with the little Wii board. But basically I used that to kind of log my weight loss journey and weigh myself and stuff like that. Towards the end of the summer, I had lost probably between 50 and 60 pounds. I don't remember the exact weight that I was down at, but I had lost a lot of weight, and I was proud of myself because I had my grandmother's wedding coming up. She was getting married, and that was also a motivator for me to lose weight in the first place, was to be able to like look nice for the wedding. And so by probably October 2015, I had reached my goal weight, which was 125 pounds. And I was like, you know what, I'm so proud of myself. Like, I'm going to treat myself for this weekend that we're up there for the wedding and just eat whatever I want. And that's what I did. I like ate burgers and chicken nuggets and grilled cheese with tomato soup and like all these good foods. I wasn't vegan at the time, just putting that out there. I didn't go vegan until later in 2017, but I just ate whatever I wanted. And I remember feeling like a bit insecure, like I shouldn't really be doing this, like this goes against everything that I've been doing the past 6 months. But I was like, no, I'm just treating myself. And then lo and behold, I come back from the wedding that weekend and I got on the scale and I saw that I had gained like 6 pounds, and I was like, what? And I remember being so frustrated and so confused that I was like, there's no way I can go back to eating normal again. So that moment was kind of when the anorexia, restrictive kind of behaviors started to take over, and I think that's when my eating disorder really kind of started. Just began restricting. Like I wasn't even really working out anymore at this point. I was just not eating, and it was more like cereal and grapes and fruit and shakes that I was drinking. I wasn't really eating solid food, and that went on for about, I want to say like 7 to 8 months. And halfway into 2016, I knew that I needed to change things because I was already looking severely underweight. I was already experiencing symptoms such as hair loss, always cold all the time, bruising really easily, and really bad digestion. And so I knew things needed to change, that's when I actually started my Instagram recovery account, which was Zoe's Recovery for like the longest time. And I had been like posting what I was eating and I was making strides to get better, but I ultimately was honestly just running myself in circles, because it's like I'd take 5 steps forwards and then I'd like go backwards 10 steps. It really wasn't until the end of 2016, like in December, that I finally decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do this because I can't do this for the rest of my life. So that's when recovery like first entered my life. And I had done extensive research on the mini mod method, and I started following like accounts that were like recovery positive and like reading their recovery journeys and what they went through. And I ended up developing my own kind of recovery plan. And at this time, I didn't see a therapist or a nutritionist / dietitian. I was able to somewhat recover on my own the first time. And what I did was I would have my mom weigh me every week, and based on the weight, she would tell me like whether it went up or down. She would tell me whether the meal plan I had constructed was working or if I needed to improve it and increase my intake. And basically, I have other videos going into detail on the mini mod method, but my meal plan that I created was based on the mini mod method of eating 1,500 to 3,000 calories a day. There was many days during like the 5-month period I was doing it that I was eating way more than 3,000, but that's just in a nutshell what I ended up doing for my first run through of recovery. And I was doing mini mod until about March / April of 2017, and by then I had somewhat like weight restored. Like I was at a healthy weight, I was feeling pretty good, and everything was fine. There was really nothing to complain about. I felt like my relationship with food was a lot better. I was slowly getting back into doing exercise after not doing it for like almost over a year and a half. And I was feeling like there was a lot of body issues in regards to just body image and dealing with it, but I was so like fixated and dedicated to recovery that I was willing to sit through those tough moments because I was so faithful that recovery was going to be worth it. So that's something that I kind of admire in the past me, because especially right now, as I'll get into it later, I'm finding it really hard to stay that committed and that faithful in the process. But past me was really dedicated, so I commend her for that. That was April of 2017, and then in June of 2017 I went vegan. So I was in a better headspace. I remember trying to go vegan like earlier in that year, and it just wasn't working because I was doing it from a restrictive mindset, not like a ethical and intentional mindset. So after like a couple more months like sticking to recovery and trusting the process and stuff, I finally transitioned into veganism, and it was a lot more, for me it was like cold turkey. Like I ate like the next day, like the day before I was eating chicken, and the next day I was like never eating chicken again. Aside from that, we ended up moving in 2017, like in August of 2017, up to Orlando because my dad had gotten a new job, and that was pretty hard for me because I had grown up in the same house we were living in before we moved. I had lived there since I was born, basically. And it was kind of tough to switch schools and to create kind of a new life because I had just told all my friends about my eating disorder struggles and like the truth about what I've been going through, and they were extremely supportive, and it was really hard to leave them like right after I told them and just start somewhere new in a place where no one knew about my past and no one knew about my past struggles and what I've been through. And that's what kind of caused me to feel like upon entering my new school that I had to be this perfect person that had no problems and that didn't have anything to hide from people. So that's kind of what preceded my relapse, the first time I relapsed. And what ended up happening is, to try and like get accustomed to the school and stuff, I joined my cross-country team, which was really nice. I met a lot of people and I felt more included. The school didn't feel as big anymore, but then it was kind of cut short like a month or two in, because I had broken my finger. I'd actually broken my finger earlier in the year when I was running, ironically, and it just hadn't healed properly, so I had to get surgery. And the doctor told me after surgery that I couldn't really exercise, and I remember that being something really hard for me to swallow because I felt again like I was in a place where I wasn't happy with my body. I felt like I was overweight again. I felt like I was fat. I didn't feel like I was good enough. And therefore, once I was recovered from my injury and able to work out again, I ended up going back to the gym and started working out, like not crazy, but I was more on top of myself for working out and stuff. And in addition to that, I was training for a half marathon that I was going to be running with my mom that next year. The process of training became very anxiety inducing and stressful for me, and it wasn't kind of long before I became to be obsessed with it again, and not in a really healthy way. It just wasn't healthy for me. I had gone vegan that same year, and a big issue was that I was training for something that required a lot of energy, and being new to the vegan lifestyle, I wasn't aware of how to properly nourish a body that's exerting that much energy. So although I wasn't intentionally restricting like I had previously in 2016 before I first started recovery, I was losing weight because I wasn't properly nourishing my body. And then again, all of those thoughts started coming back. It made it super easy for the negative feelings to arise, and then I was experiencing all the symptoms again, like hair falling out, cold, whatever, you guys know the deal. But yeah, I was slipping back into that mindset, and that's when the binge and restricting cycle came back again. On top of the excessive exercise, it was only a matter of time before I ended up going to treatment. I actually had just finished the race with my mom, and I had gotten blood tests done a couple weeks later because my doctor was pretty concerned, and we got the results back, and it said that my protein level was very, very low, and if I didn't do something, I would have to go to the hospital. So that's what kind of drove my parents to put me into treatment. Now, I'm so grateful that I even went to treatment because it was covered by my insurance, so I don't think I would have had that opportunity to go had it not been covered by my insurance. I started treatment on May 29th, 2018, and that I was enrolled in IOP, which is intensive outpatient treatment, where I spend most of the day there. I went from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. and we did lunch at 12, afternoon snack at 3, and then dinner at 6. And then in between those times would be me meeting with a dietitian, me meeting with a therapist, and then doing just like group therapy kind of work with the other patients. I was there every day for the entire summer. So for the entire summer of my junior year of high school, I spent it in treatment. That's dedication right there. But to continue, something that helped me in treatment was on Thursdays would be ERP days, which I didn't know what ERP was, but it's basically fear food, a day where we challenge our fear foods. So we'd bring in a fear food of ours, and well, at the very beginning of treatment, we had to make a list of all of our fear foods, and then once a week we'd bring in our fear food on that Thursday, and we'd sit at the table for our snack and we'd have it. And so yeah, I remember I challenged myself to lots of baked goods, and yeah, it got to the point where I would just bring baked goods every day because I loved them so much, and I was getting over the fear, which I was super grateful for that. But yeah, it was challenging at times. I remember there was times where I would just like not know what to do and didn't see the point in treatment and recovery, but I'm so glad I stayed with it because I ended up graduating on August 1st, which I look at every year as kind of like a day for new beginnings, because that was the day that, not that I was deemed recovered, but that I kind of realized that I do have a chance, that recovery is possible and attainable for me and anyone that puts in the effort to recover. Being a dietitian and a therapist throughout my recovery was something that I am very grateful for. I don't think I could have gotten as far as I did without them, and I think that's the reason that's not the sole reason I relapsed, but I think having a therapist and a dietitian really helped keep me on track, whereas when I was at first doing it by myself, I didn't really have anyone to confide in or look to for guidance other than my mom. And my mom was completely new to eating disorders too, so it wasn't like there was any professional monitoring the whole process, if that makes any sense. So after I graduated from treatment though, I did not continue to see an outpatient team, and I think this was where things kind of went down into like a spiral a little, or definitely did take a few steps back in my recovery because of this. I think me and my family were under the impression that since I graduated, I must be fully recovered, or else the treatment place wouldn't have let me go if I wasn't fully recovered. I began to look at all my struggles that lingered after I graduated from treatment as things that must be normal. In retrospect, that's not true. It's basically, at the end of the day, it all comes down to insurance and how much they can afford to pay for you to be in treatment for that duration of time. So it has nothing to do with whether or not you seem to be recovered or not. So that's what I learned, and it really sucks that that's how the system works, but I really hope that one day the system changes and can help people that can't even afford to get treatment, because I think it's something that everyone should be entitled to receive, because no one deserves to suffer alone, and everyone, I think, deserves recovery in the best way possible. Thoughts around food at this time, since I wasn't seeing any professional help, they began to resurface again, and on top of the pressure of looking out for myself and my other friends that I had met through treatment, I feel like I kind of took a few steps backwards, and a lot of this had to deal with me reflecting on my own food choices and me kind of asking myself why I am vegan. And it was also coincidentally at the time that everyone on YouTube, like a lot of the vegan YouTubers, were coming out saying they were no longer vegan, and I think them saying that kind of influenced me to kind of question why I was vegan. And so there was a time, a couple months, where I was no longer vegan. I didn't really call myself vegan. I was kind of just no label at all. I was really only eating eggs and milk every once in a while, and I thought that it would change me because a lot of the YouTubers I looked up to that were no longer vegan was saying how like introducing animal products was changing their life. So I had introduced milk and eggs back, and I honestly did not see a difference. If anything, I felt like crappier and I felt horrible and I did not feel good at all. So it lasted like a hot second, but I went back to being vegan because I wasn't getting anything from it. So I was like, why sacrifice a cow or a chicken if I'm not honestly getting anything from consuming their byproducts? That time I was still going through the motions of having an unhealthy kind of relationship with food. I was much better at it, I think. It wasn't so much an intentional relapse, it was more unintentional, as I was training for my second and third half marathon with my family, and I actually PR'd for both of them, which was awesome. And I was a lot better at training. Training wasn't as stressful for me as it was before when I was deeper in my eating disorder. I feel like my relationship was a little bit better with running, and however, I still had lost a bit of weight. It was 2019, by the way, and I still hadn't had my period, and it had been 4 years since I had lost it in 2015. So I knew that something had to change. So after my races were done, I was not exercising at all, and I finally convinced my parents to let me see a dietitian and a therapist again. And this was something that was a big step for me, not just in my recovery but in my growth as an individual. I think because my parents are amazing and supportive, and I'm super grateful and glad that they have been so supportive for me in my recovery. But I think there comes a time where we both have our own differing views on how to approach recovery and how the recovery process is supposed to work. And really asking and stepping up to ask my parents if I could get a therapist and a dietitian to help me through my recovery still was a step for me, in that it brought me to stand up for my own beliefs and what I believed recovery would entail for me, rather than appealing to their idea of what my recovery should look like. Not too long after starting to see my therapist and my dietitian, I had gotten my period back, and I was eating a lot more. My mindset was changing, and I was honestly, I think those couple months were the best months of my life so far. I was in such a good headspace. I was finally living my life and just not worrying about food. It reached a point where like I was in my therapy sessions and I had nothing to talk about, because I was like, life is so good right now, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about. And so I think that just goes to show how good of a headspace I was in mentally at the time. And I really felt at peace, and I honestly thought I was recovered. Like I felt like I could call myself recovered and that I had no issues with food whatsoever. Then I went to college. Now, I'm not saying that college is exactly what caused my most recent relapse that I'm recovering from right now. I think it was a combination of factors over the past 7 months. So I started in August of 2019. I'm getting so lost right now. I started college in August of 2019, and right now it is March of 2020. But basically, for one, I was no longer seeing a therapist. And the reason I wasn't seeing a therapist was, again, because I thought that I was in such a good headspace that I didn't need one anymore, because I didn't feel like my sessions were as productive, just because I really had nothing to talk about. I was seeing my dietitian, I just wasn't seeing her as often. Another factor was that it was getting hard for me to deal with my recovered body. So again, dealing with the body image, yeah, that was definitely another factor that caused my most recent kind of relapse. Another thing was being in college. I joined a sorority, and it was an experience for me. I had never thought of joining a sorority, but I mainly went into it hoping to be more involved in campus, just make it easier to get adjusted to college life and kind of make some new friends. I will make a whole other video. I keep like resting my hand on the thing and it falls, but I can make a whole other video on my experience being in a sorority. But basically, to cut to the chase, I recently dropped it because of financial reasons, and also it was just too much of a burden on me mentally. I think I was having a hard time fitting in and I felt like I was trying to be someone that I wasn't sometimes, and I just didn't like that. I didn't want to be stressed out about that. So and plus I didn't think that, given the mental state I was currently in, I needed to spend more time healing myself mentally and physically rather than dedicating all of my time towards something that's such a big commitment like being in a sorority. But on top of that, college has been very, very stressful for me. Not just the classes themselves haven't really been that hard. It's been more of the idea of me needing to figure out what I want to do, what I want to major in, how it's going to work, whether or not I'm going to graduate early. And I think that process has been so frustrating because you don't know what the outcome's going to be. You can go in thinking, oh, I want to do business, or I want to do journalism or something, and then you take 2 classes and your whole entire perception of life changes, and you end up rerouting what you want to do. So not having like control over the outcome is what I think led me to fall back into eating disorder habits through over exercising and not eating. Well, I was eating, but I just wasn't eating enough. So again, this was similar to my last relapse, where I was kind of over exercising and I wasn't really compensating in regards to food. What I mean by that is I wasn't nourishing my body and compensating for the amount of exercise that I was doing, and thus that led me to lose a bit of weight. I then lost my period again, as I've explained in my last couple videos. After gaining it back in around like June of 2019, I lost it again in like November, and I still haven't gotten it back. So that's what my current recovery journey has me on right now, is getting my period back and gaining back the weight that I lost in that time period since I started college. It kind of leads me to where I am now. I'm seeing the same dietitian, and I got a new therapist that I saw for the first time last week, after not seeing a therapist for almost 7 to 8 months. And it's really nice. I feel a bit more confident that I'm going to be able to progress and do better in my recovery right now. Something that has been challenging for me recently, and you will probably see this in my what I ate in a week video, is I've been I have been advised to incorporate supplements back into my diet temporarily. So in order to gain back some of the weight that I lost, I need to be eating, obviously, this was what makes sense in real life. It is common sense that in order to gain weight, you have to be eating in a calorie surplus. And so I've incorporated some supplements to kind of help that weight gain process and just to help me get back on track a little bit faster. There's been days where I've just kind of let myself get away with not eating certain things that I know I need to be eating, but I know that I need to, again, find the committed, recovery-driven Zoe that existed back in 2017 and just embody her as I get back on recovery and slay this thing, you know? So I don't want to increase my intake. I don't want to have supplements, but I know I need to. So I need to do this, again, for my family, for my health, for my future family, and just for my well-being in general. This is also meant for me that I need to take a break from exercise. I'm not saying right now, me and my dietitian are working on just how much exercise I should be doing at this moment. It's been a challenge for me to just kind of take this week off of exercise. We're gonna see, based on how I do, if maybe twice a week is okay, or just as long as I'm compensating for whatever I am doing. But yeah, definitely monitoring my exercise and taking a break has been something that has been hard. Brought me to realize that I need to find other outlets to cope with my stress and to just kind of not compare myself with other people, and yeah, my camera's about to die, so I'm gonna wrap this video up. So my camera died, so basically what I was trying to say is that this so far has been my recovery journey. I am in no way saying that recovery, as you can see from the story I shared, recovery is not linear. If anything, there's always going to be ups and downs, but that doesn't mean recovery isn't possible, and it doesn't mean that it's not worth it, because I believe recovery is worth it. I believe that in the end, there is a life waiting for you better than this, better than the suffering that you're putting yourself through, and there is a life of abundance and love waiting for you on the other side. You just have to have the faith, and you have to take that leap of courage, or take that leap of faith, and just know that although it might seem hazy now, although it might seem hard now, it's going to be worth it in the end. And if anything, that's what I kind of hope me sharing my journey with you conveys, because I hope it shows you that even all the ups and downs I've been through, even through the trials and errors and experiences at treatment and times where I felt like there was nothing left for me to be on this earth for, I'm still here. I'm still living. I'm still doing my best to stay positive, and I'm still committing to recovery. So that's kind of what I hope you guys take away from this video. If you like it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you guys want more like recovery style videos, please let me know. I'm always open to making them if that's what you guys want, because I make what you guys want. So just let me know. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up this video. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.